Fantasy Focus Football Podcast is presented by Century 21.
Fantasy, you're in the 06010. Focus. Fantasy Focus.
Welcome into week 4. The Redskins are undefeated this week. No, it's true, right? It's true. The Redskins are undefeated this week.
That's true. We have yet to lose in week 4.
That's a good point here. Very good point here. Field and Matthew hanging out with you on a Tuesday as we flip the page from week 3 into week 4. Are you okay?
Yeah.
It's a loaded question.
It's a loaded question. It's a loaded question because yesterday you and I sat here on this show and I was sitting there. I was on our Twitter page trying to find a link to the. Anyway, whatever.
I just tweeted it at Field Yates. Yeah.
No, I just went to @Fantasy Focus. It's not up on @Fantasy Focus.
Oh, I tweeted. I schedule these tweets for reasons
You're
like that.
so smart, so much better at the Twitter than I am. But anyway, so here's the thing.
Okay.
So you and I sat here on the show yesterday, and I'm trying to decide which one of us got it right. So because you said, what do you think happens tonight?
I said you got this one right. I 100% screwed it up. I said the Redskins would, thinking about it more. I said the Redskins would play the Bears tough early, and then the Bears would pull away.
I thought what you said was basically, I thought you said Redskins lose in a play tough but lose in a close one. And I said, I think they get embarrassed on national television. I think they get blown out here. I think Trubisky balls out. I just think they get completely blown. But here's the thing. They actually were within a score at one point. Or they were close-ish, within two scores. Like if they'd gotten the 2-point, if they got the 2-point conversion,
they did open the game tied, as Kyle astutely points out, right? So they were within 0 scores at the beginning of the game. No, it was embarrassing.
But that's what it is. I want to say I think that since 1998, the Redskins are 1-17 on Monday Night Football. Is that?
I think it's 2-17.
Is it 2-17?
So they've got 2 going for them, which is pretty nice.
Which is I mean, it's awful. And what's more embarrassing, I mean, there's so many things that are wrong, right? In addition to just being embarrassed on national television again, they were not embarrassed in front of their home crowd because that was a Bears crowd. I mean, I got sent a bunch of videos and tweets from fans or friends that were there being like, yeah, it's all black and orange out here. Like it was palpable. Like you could, and so. They did a crowd shot just before kickoff, and there were a ton of empty seats, which never used to happen. And the seats that were filled with Bears fans, which also never used to happen. And so, I
hate to say this, Matthew.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know everybody makes the Dolphins the butt end of their joke right now for which football team you'd least like to be, but wouldn't you rather be the Dolphins and the Redskins?
The Dolphins have a plan.
They have a plan.
The Dolphins have a plan that whether you agree with it or not, the Dolphins are like we are. Full on, we are tanking for Tua. We are stockpiling picks. We're keeping, the few good young players that we like, but it is a full-on rebuild, but there's a plan. There's a plan there, and there does not seem to be one in Washington, and it's disappointing. Listen, I'm a Redskins fan. I will be for my entire life. It's in my blood. I cannot get rid of it. I am not a Bruce Allen fan. I am not. And I think the problems at some point you are what your record are. And the record of the team under Bruce Allen, who has had complete control of the franchise. Everyone wants to blame Dan Snyder. And I get that. And ultimately it's Dan Snyder's call to keep Bruce Allen in that job. So I get that. Right. But truthfully, Snyder has put money in whatever. I'm not.
You know what, Matthew?
All I'm going to say is I believe that this team does not get better as long as Bruce Allen is in charge of all the decisions.
You see that? We've cleansed our palate. Now let's talk football. Final score was 31-15. So let's grasp the small ray of hope that the Redskins do have. Because the Redskins do have one player, Matthew, that has got fantasy stardom already underneath his belt. Terry McLaurin becomes the first player with 5 catches and a receiving touchdown in each of his first 3 NFL games.
First player in NFL history to do that. There's only 2 players that have done it in all 3 games this season.
Yeah.
Terry McLaurin.
Devonta Adams.
Julio Jones.
Julio! Ooh, he catches touchdowns
I know. Daniel's surprised to hear this.
I just want to say this. I just want to get this on record. I think Julio might finally be elite. Like I think
he's actually underrated now.
Yeah,
right?
like he's
underrated.
ever since I called him out on not scoring touchdowns, he's come out with a touchdown barrage.
Oh, Daniel, do me a favor here. Do me a favor.
So
okay?
is he finally in your eyes better than Marvin Jones?
Yeah,
because I know for a long time you had Marvin over him.
It's like 1A, 1B sort of.
I need a little help here, Daniel. Could you just for me? And
you
for
bet, buddy.
others, okay, take these names. You ready for them? Sony Michel, James Conner, Todd Gurley, and Stephon Diggs. And repeat after me. Or just, you know what? Just say it in consecutive name order. Each one of them is overrated. Please do that because you apparently have this magic touch. You reverse jinx people.
Right.
And I could use some more touchdowns from those people. Is that too much
not
to ask?
bad. No, I will think. I'll tell you what. I'll think about it.
By the end of the show, pick one of them is overrated, and I'll make sure to trade for that player right away.
But Daniel Dopp, for those that are sort of just tuning in or not understanding this joke, Daniel Dopp dug in his heels last year as not a joke, in a dead serious way, that he thought Julio Jones was overrated. Fair?
When you say overrated, what you're not explaining is that I still thought he was a superstar, but I would not draft him with the first-round pick because I did not like the value that would be returned from a guy that would score 4 touchdowns a year as a first-rounder.
Well, now he has not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, but 7 straight games with a receiving touchdown.
He's been crushing it, man.
Your narrative has changed on Julio. So for the Redskins, Matthew, it's sort of one player plus for the Redskins you can trust in your fantasy lineup week to week.
McLaurin has 50%. 50% of the end zone target shares of this team. And, you know, like, he's the 10th best wide receiver in fantasy right now, right? He's got more fantasy points than Michael Thomas, more than DeAndre Hopkins, more than Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
And I don't think this is a fluke. Do I think he ends the year with more fantasy points than DeAndre Hopkins? Of course not. But do I think the usage is right? Do I think the talent is right? I don't think these are fluky plays. Like, he is a very polished route runner on a team that is going to throw. Like, Terry McLaurin is the real freaking deal.
Well, not only that, but
both NFL-wise and fantasy-wise.
The Redskins are going to be bad all year.
Correct.
They're going to have games where they have to throw it 45 or 50 times. It was 43 attempts last night for Case Keenum regularly. They got some production out of Paul Richardson in the second half of that game last night, but he's the clear-cut number one wide receiver. We talked about him playing basically every snap in week one. Eventually, Dwayne Haskins figures to be the quarterback this year. The two of them already have a rapport, having played together at Ohio State. Terry McLaurin, you already feel good about as a top 25 to 30 play each and every week. I suppose.
I think he's a top 20 play at this point. I mean, I don't know what the hell what else the guy has to do.
Only because, you know, wide receiver, we talked about the depth of it going into the season. Like, okay, top 20, that's fine.
He is the 10th best wide receiver in the fan through 3 games.
It's fine.
And now has the Giants. Like, I don't know if you've done your ranks yet for this week.
I have, yeah.
Where did McLaurin rank for you?
25.
Okay, see, like, I would go higher than that because, again, a tremendous amount of target share and a great matchup with the Giants.
Yeah, maybe it's because it felt like it took him a while to get going last night with Terry McLaurin. Much of that damage came in the second half. That's fine. Fantasy points count all the same, whether they're scored in the first, second, third.
It did. He had one catch for 22 yards that got called back due to penalty. But one thing I will say is I think Richardson is sort of like, again, for deeper leagues, you know, just a name to keep on the radar, right? He's now caught a touchdown in 2 straight games, right? He's got 11 to 12 targets over the past 2 weeks, 8 for 83 and a score last night. Again, they're going to be in negative game script for the majority of this year. And so, you know, they don't have a lot of other people to throw it to. I mean, I like Trey Quinn as like a nice little player.
Developmental player, yeah.
Vernon Davis, whatever, Jeremy Sprinkle, but like who knows if we ever see Jordan Reed again this year. So, I mean, it's really going to be, for the most part, it's going to be McLaurin and Richardson.
Things were pretty chalky otherwise. Adrian Peterson got the most rushing attempts, but Chris Thompson adds 4 catches. Chris Thompson, the upside is in the passing game. The one thing I'll say on the Redskins to close the circle here is that it's a weird week with all the quarterback injuries, a couple of teams on the bye. Not that many people were starting Jimmy Garoppolo or any of the Jets' quarterbacks, of course. But if you're feeling like you need to roll the dice with a quarterback this weekend, Case Keenum plays the Giants. And Case Keenum's throwing the ball a ton. I've got him as quarterback 12 this week.
I was just going to say, like, Jay Gruden came out after the game and he was asked about McLaurin, and Jay Gruden like shot that down. I think
you mean Dwayne Haskins.
Dwayne, sorry, I don't know what did I say?
McLaurin.
McLaurin.
He did not shoot down. He's Jerry McLaurin's going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I misspoke. You were correct. After the game, he was asked about Dwayne Haskins, and Jay Gruden shot that down, saying they were going to stick with Case Keenum, that they needed some continuity on offense, and so. look, Case Keenum had a bad game. There's no way around it. Like, he had a bad NFL game, but he got no help whatsoever. That offensive line just got decimated.
So I'll say one last thing. That's actually the last thing here is that I understand why people are wondering, like, why not play Dwayne Haskins? First of all, it sounds like Dwayne himself might not be ready.
Yeah, I don't think he is.
Second of all, remember, like, I don't want to call it mutiny, but the frustration that veterans expressed after week 1 when Adrian Peterson was a healthy scratch? Yep. Case Keenum is a captain of this team. He's a veteran player, and I get it. That should not be the only merit to starting. But you've got to operate Monday through Saturday, and we don't know what's going on. For all we know, the unquestioned leader of this team Monday through Saturday is actually Case Keenum. Now, what happens on Saturdays or on Sundays, or in that case, Monday night last night, that's a different story. But leadership, some of the intangibles do matter, specifically at quarterback. So I'm not saying that I'm super inspired by Case Keenum, but I also, it's not hard for me to envision why it's more difficult for Jay Gruden to go to Dwayne Haskins than people sort of want it to be.
It's interesting. I saw a lot of Redskins beat writers, including John Keim, who does a great job for us covering the team. He has for years. Love John Keim. Has said that, the expectation is that Colt McCoy would actually be healthy and maybe, so honestly, I think if Case Keenum for some reason does not start against the Giants on Sunday, I think it would be Colt McCoy, right, not Dwayne Haskins.
I think this is bubble wrap Dwayne Haskins for a year and don't expose him to this nonsense.
Not until Trent Williams gets back, and who knows if that's ever happening. This franchise is
all right.
It's sad. It's disappointing. It's tough to be a Redskins fan these days. But I do agree with your thought process here that Case Keenum is a very viable streamer this week. I mean, coming into the game, he was a top 10 fantasy quarterback, and he threw for over 330 yards in this one. A ton of turnovers, of course, but I don't expect those turnovers to happen against the Giants. And for DFS, I'm sure he's dirt cheap in DFS. I haven't looked at the prices.
Baker Mayfield replacement this week would be a very smart name there for those who are looking to add a quarterback for week 4. Let's get to the Bears. It was a fine game for the Bears offensively. The story for them was really defense, right? But Mitch Trubisky had a lights-out second quarter. 3 touchdowns. All of them came in the second quarter. They all went to Taylor Gabriel. I'll say this, Matthew. I had a tweet queued up, and I was getting ready to fire away, and I said, be a little bit more patient. Typically, a quarterback is supposed to go make a decided leap in not just from year 1 to year 2, but also year 2 to year 3. Mitch Trubisky was making that leap backwards through 2 games and about 3/4 of 1 quarter last night.
So you had a snarky tweet lined up.
Just like, but I think,
be honest,
maybe snarky, but also maybe a true, right? Like, one of the narratives this offseason was that Mitch Trubisky could be much better in the second year of Matt Nagy's offense, right? I get it. It was fine last night, but I'm still not fully bought in there. I think last night, it was great for fantasy. People that played Mitch Trubisky are probably happy, but I still don't trust him as my weekly starter.
I was literally going to say, so you and I didn't talk about this before the show, but we are on the complete same page here. I was going to say, to the extent that you can, it's always tough to trade a quarterback, but maybe even in a 2-quarterback league, I would trade Mitch Trubisky. I would try to sell him high because here's what's concerning, right? So the 3 touchdown passes are nice, but it was a lot of dink and dunk. He had the one nice play to Taylor Gabriel, long pass, but for the most part it was dink and dunk. And here's the other thing. He's not running. He's not running at all. 1 rush for 2 yards in this game, and a lot of his fantasy value last year came from the rushing. And so when you think about, we talk about this with Cam Newton, this is one of the things we did on the fantasy show on ESPN Plus. Without his rushing, Cam Newton averages 13.3 fantasy points per game as a quarterback. Is that Thirsty Kyle? What was the time frame on that? I'm forgetting that. He's going to look it up for me right there. But we looked it up. I think it's actually for his career.
For his career. How about
his career. But Thirsty Kyle is going to make me honest.
No, it's correct.
It's correct. It's for his career. That's so. 13.3 points. That's outside your top 20. That's not even startable, right? So Mitch Trubisky without the rushing,
13.2, even worse.
13.2 for his career. Cam Newton without the rushing, and so that's what I feel like Mitch Trubisky is. He's like Cam Newton without the rushing. Mitch Trubisky without the rushing is like 3 touchdowns are nice, but still, in a game in which they dominated, in a game in which they got great field position, time in and time out, where the Bears got 5 turnovers and only 1 was returned for a touchdown. So they got great field position throughout the game, 231 yards, 3 touchdowns. It was a good game, but it wasn't an amazing game.
Right, and this is a great stat that Kyle posted. 16.8 points in the second quarter alone last night for Trubisky.
Yeah.
In all of their quarters this season, 11 of them in total, 16.5 fantasy points.
I mean,
so I still would not trust Mitch Trubisky as my weekly starter, especially not against the Vikings in week 4. But he is far from the most disappointing Bear, Matthew.
Oh, there's no question about it. But again, that would be my take, is if you can sell high on Mitchell Trubisky off of this game,
Do so.
I would do so, because there are some warning signs there. I have not written my love-hate list yet, but he will certainly make the hate list this week. I agree with you. You want no part of him against the Vikes.
If you were going to rewrite your love-hate column for the year, I imagine which side David Montgomery would land on.
Oh, my goodness.
David Montgomery, who I took the bait. I heard all the buzz. I told people talking him up and local reports that he's crushing training camp and all this, and the Bears are infatuated by him. What are they infatuated by? Him getting like 4 yards and a cloud of dust on each run, 13 runs for 67 yards plus 3 catches for 14 yards. And I know sometimes the stats don't tell a story, but am I missing it so far? Has he been a dynamic runner so far? Things can change, but far.
He's had moments. He's had flashes. He's had a play here or a play there.
Okay.
But in terms of a consistent body
Christian
of work,
McCaffrey has to play like every 12 minutes.
Yeah, I know. So, no, I'm just saying in terms of you're asking, like, has he had like a dynamic run where you see something? Yes, there are moments like that where you sort of see it, but there's other moments where you're just like, okay. And then there's other things that are curious where you're just like sort of the usage, because like they used him to sort of close it out towards the end of last night, but they didn't do much with him getting up there. And it just, so you wonder for a running back, especially a young running back, that it's hard to get in a rhythm. And they do so many different looks and so many different, packages. I mean,
right. It's kind of the Patriots like, right? It's rare that a guy is just going to dominate the rushes week to week.
We thought that was going to be the case, and we certainly, I think, but I'm pretty sure I had Montgomery on my love list this week. Did I? Thirsty Kyle, I did. So I had him on my love list this week. I talk about so many players. Well, right, and I got that one wrong. But one of the reasons I had him on the list was because he got 72% of the Bears rushing touches in week 2. Now, he wound up with 72% of the Bears running back carries in week 3, but just the way that offense went around when they got in close, like Cordero Patterson's getting a goal line run,
right?
And they threw it close.
Because that's the problem with how he's performed so far. I don't know what his total number of fantasy points are through 3 games. And that's sort of irrelevant for the moment because we know it's not what you expected it to be if you were using a top 25 pick on David Montgomery. And by the end of August, there were people that were using a top 25 pick on David Montgomery.
And the other thing I will say here, and this is not calling any one specific fantasy analyst out, but because we're all as guilty of this as anything, right? But our job isn't to say we think David Montgomery's really talented. Our job, for better or for worse, is to say, does Matt Nagy think David Montgomery's really talented?
Yeah.
Because we like him. We think he's talented. We think there's something there. Here's what's Lou Riddick. And I'm not trying to call out Lou because Lou is one of, if not the smartest guy we've got in the building. Lou is amazing. And Lou came on the fantasy show on ESPN Plus in the preseason. We were talking about the Bears because he had just come from Bears camp. And he could not have been more effusive about David Montgomery and how the Bears coaching staff felt about this kid. And Lou talked him up on the show saying how he thought he was going to have a very big year because of just how he knew they felt about him in terms of how they wanted to use him in the passing game and the versatility of him and what he brought to that offense and how Matt Nagy was excited about it. And so, I mean, like I said, Lou Riddick's as smart a guy as we got in this building. And so I don't know, man. It's
frustration with David
frustration
Montgomery.
And it's puzzling. So, free David Montgomery. Hey, everyone that's protesting in Green Bay, just if he can just head down to Chicago for a day as well, change the signs real quick.
No, they're loving this in Green Bay.
Well, I understand, but for us that play fantasy, going forward, until we see more consistency out of David Montgomery.
Yep.
For me, he is a cross your fingers flex.
Correct. That's exactly what I was going to say. A cross your fingers flex. If we had to, if we actually did RB3s and RB4s, he'd be right on the border of RB3 and RB4. Yeah. Right? Just he's
like one of those guys where you're just depending on it's just in a given week, him or James White, it's sort of in that range where you're like...
I'm even more optimistic on James White, that's for sure. I mean, at least there's passing game value, and they score touchdowns in New England. Until last night, they barely scored touchdowns in Chicago.
And by the way, we didn't really talk about this pre-show, but we should just mention very quickly, just as long as we're talking about New England running backs, I don't think people understand or appreciate what a big loss James Devlin is to that New England running game.
Yeah, fullback placed on IR yesterday because of a neck issue. We'll see if he returns later on this season, but the guy has been a Pro Bowl fullback, and we don't talk about fullbacks really at all for fantasy purposes, and not really in the real world of football because they're sort of a dying breed. But James Devlin going on IR, certainly an area to monitor for the Patriots.
And
two offensive linemen on IR plus fullback. James, yeah, indeed.
So that's what I'm saying. Like
Johnson
James
from the
White,
international program steps up into that role now.
Well, listen.
Sure, you had him on your fantasy radar.
Of course, obviously. But what you're counting on there is you're counting on the system. You're counting on the Patriots. You're counting on Belichick and McDaniels. But I am. With a James Devlin injury, I am less optimistic on Sony Michel turning it around in a big way, and more optimistic, to your point, on James White, that maybe they try to get more creative and they're using their running backs more in the passing game.
We'll get to more injury news in just a minute, but first, Matthew Berry, tell us a little something about a little something.
Oh, sure. Hang on.
Pull out your papers.
Yeah, no, it's over
left.
here. It is.
There it is.
It is.
Yeah.
Here we go.
There you go. You got this. You got this, Dad.
Yeah. All right. So you know that fantasy football feeling?
Which one?
You know, when the excitement for a new week builds?
Yeah, I know that one. Like right now.
Like right now, where you're like, your Redskins haven't been embarrassed on national TV yet? Yeah, exactly. You flex your analytical skills by poring over stats, studying charts, and trying to spot trends. Well, what if I told you that you could use those same skills to invest and feel that same sense of anticipation every single day? TD Ameritrade thinks you can, okay? That's because a lot of the same analytical skills that you use to set your lineup can help you build a portfolio. Not to mention, TD Ameritrade has all the education and investing tools you need to feel confident when you take the trading floor. There's paper money, so you can practice trading risk-free field, charting to help you spot trends in the market, and they'll even create an investing training plan that's unique to you and your needs, complete with exclusive videos, webcasts, and courses. Just visit tdameritrade.com/fantasy to learn more. Once again, that's tdameritrade.com/fantasy to get started. Member SIPC.
Good stuff there. So now let's get to the injury that is the story of the weekend in fantasy football. Saquon Barkley had an MRI on Monday, and Adam Schefter reports the ankle issue that he suffered on Sunday is expected to cause him to miss 4 to 8 weeks. 4 to 8 weeks for Saquon Barkley, who was drafted as 1.01, certainly, the foundation of many people's fantasy roster this year and championship rosters last year, Matthew. So we now know the time frame, or at least a framework of the time frame. Wayne Gallman, the next man up in the Giants' backfield.
For the moment.
What is your confidence level in Wayne Gallman? So that's a good point. So when you say for the moment, that to me suggests right away, like, not that confident. I'm just not that confident at all. Like, if this were Green Bay and Aaron Jones went down, I'd feel confident in Jamal Williams being the next man up. But in New York, with Saquon Barkley going down, I don't know how confident I feel in Wayne Gallman. I'm going to add him if I can, and I'm going to play him this weekend in a flex spot if I can.
But more importantly, we don't know how confident
the Giants
Shermer and Dave Gettleman are in Wayne Gallman. So as of the time that we're doing this podcast, Tuesday morning at 10 a.m., the Giants have not made a roster move yet. But there has been speculation, and they've talked about the fact that, hey, we may add somebody. A lot of people sort of connecting the dots think C.J. Anderson, the former Panther, who's a free agent, obviously released by the Lions. Could he wind up there? There's some other guys there. Jay Ajayi's out there. Do they make a trade?
Mad on that one,
Right. But I'm just saying there's names out there. There are names out there. Some people have talked about trading for Kenyon Drake. Can't really see that happening. But
Orleans Darkwell would make some sense.
Sure. But my point is like, we don't know that that Wayne Gallman's going to get the kind of touches that Saquon Barkley did, that they may add another piece, and it just may be more of a running back by committee.
So, okay. Agreed on that, and we've talked about Wayne Gallman. We talked about him yesterday, and we sort of established his value, right? Like it's a cross your fingers flex. Maybe would it be borderline cross your fingers RB2 if things go well?
Yeah, look, he's a starting running back in the NFL on what I believe is a functional offense. I think under Daniel Jones, I think this offense is going to be decent.
Sure,
not great,
agree.
But it's going to be functional.
Good matchup this weekend.
Yes, great matchup this weekend. So the starting running back on a functional offense has value in fantasy football. It absolutely does. And if you want some sort of silver lining here, so when Wayne Gallman has gotten 10 or more touches in a game, he averages 10.4 fantasy points per game for his career. So like sort of usable-ish.
But, so yeah, I agree. So I think we agree. We have the similar expectation for Wayne Gallman. Cross your fingers, flex to start. Maybe if he shows really well, he's a borderline RB2 until Saquon Barkley returns. Until
again, we think this offense will be throwing a lot. It will be more efficient. Gallman's a decent pass catcher. So again, if he gets kind of a significant amount of playing time and that anyone they add is just depth and not an running back by committee kind of thing, then he becomes a little bit more interesting.
But
I will say, yeah, go ahead.
I don't think that's the most important part of the Saquon Barkley storyline right now.
Okay.
I think the thing that people are wondering right now more than anything else, more than Wayne Gallman, because I think that everybody feels similarly about him.
Yeah. And he's the number one waiver claim for you this week, I would assume, right?
I had Nelson Agholor ahead of him, short week. Probably feel better about the value there. There are a couple of guys. I don't necessarily have a 1 through 10 system, but he's right there in the mix. Darrel Williams, Wayne Gallman, Nelson Agholor. It also
depends on what you need, right? I mean, because I would think my guess is that if we're sitting here a week from now, who scored more fantasy points this week, I would feel better about Agholor in a decent matchup, obviously, than Gallman. But if I need someone for the next month in a flex spot, I feel better about Gallman because Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson are going to be back sooner rather than later.
So, but back to this Wayne Gallman conversation. I think it really is about Saquon Barkley and the trade value here. Both trading him away and attempting to trade for Saquon Barkley. I think that's what people are going to be asking.
Yeah.
4 to 8 weeks of the best player in fantasy football coming into this season, potentially being out. Now it's a floating target. 4 to 8 weeks. Those are two very different things. Yeah. Maybe the Giants put him on injured reserve because at that point they would guarantee him being out for 8 weeks. It would give us clarity. For them, it would not have to rush him back at all. They could resist the temptation to doing so, and they might need the roster spot. But let's imagine a scenario that you roster Saquon Barkley right now, Matthew. Let me start to throw some names at you. And if I say to you, I offer this player right now, this is not a trade that takes place 2 weeks from now and right now. Okay.
Gotta do it right now. Yep.
I offer you Aaron Jones for Saquon Barkley. Are you accepting?
What's my record?
Okay, so let's get a little bit more.
I'm dead serious.
Okay, so
but I'm dead serious. Like if I am 1-2.
Okay, 2-1. How about that? We'll go 2-1. You're 2-1 with Saquon Barkley. 2-1 or better with Saquon Barkley, and I offer you Aaron Jones. Yes or no?
Probably doing that.
Okay, if I offer you Devonta Freeman for Saquon Barkley, you're 2-1. Again, you're always 2-1 or better here.
Not doing that.
Not doing Devonta Freeman. If I offer you, I was going to say James Conner for Saquon Barkley.
Probably doing that, yeah.
You're probably doing James Conner. Okay. If I offer you Phillip Lindsay for Saquon Barkley.
Not doing that.
Not doing that. I know the answer is no on Sony Michel.
Correct.
If I offer you Leonard Fournette for Saquon Barkley, are you doing that?
No, but I think most people would.
Okay, so you're thinking long and hard about Leonard Fournette, even though you would not do it.
I'm not a Fournette guy.
Understood, that's fine.
And I worry about injury with him. But my point is I think most people would say yes to that.
Right, fair enough. Last one here, and probably a yes, but he hasn't been great so far. David Johnson, yes or no?
Yes.
You're taking David Johnson. Okay.
In a heartbeat.
So what I wanted to establish there is sort of the line. I think I kind of have a feel for it. Basically, if you have Saquon Barkley and someone offers you an RB2, you're at least thinking about it.
Yes.
Like, that's about the range. Like, obviously, if someone offers you Alvin Kamara, no, of course. Dalvin Cook, any of those guys you're taking.
But again, it also goes to, but I mean,
Joe
the reason
Mixon?
I wasn't, no, I don't want Joe Mixon. But
okay.
That I'm passing on. I'm so nervous about that offensive line. I would want out of the Joe Mixon business.
Got it.
This year. And it's no fault of Joe's. But here's the thing. The reason I asked about the record is I think that's important. And I also think...
No, I understand that.
And it's hard to answer that in a vacuum because it's like, well, what's my running back depth? You know what I mean?
I know, but when we're getting 1,000 questions asking about trades, we're trying our best to answer as many as we can.
Yeah, but my fear with... The reason why I took somebody like Aaron Jones was, first off, I just, I believe in the talent. And I know that that offense is going to be run heavy this year. And even half of the Packers, and the schedule gets easier for them as well. But the other thing is that I'm nervous that it's within the realm of possibility, I believe, that Saquon Barkley's played his last game this year. Hear me out.
Ooh. Okay.
Hear me out, though. It could be 8 weeks, right? That's within the timeline.
Okay.
4 to 8 weeks.
Yep.
We just don't know. Now, listen, Saquon Barkley is superhuman. He's
Literally,
made of different DNA somehow than you and I, right? I mean, this guy is superhuman. If he was back next week, it wouldn't shock me. I mean, Saquon Barkley is is just, an absolute beast of a man. But if it's the 8 week period, he puts 8, and now we're in week 11 or week 12, right?
Yeah, I get it.
And the Giants are 4-8.
Yeah, okay. So I think they play him because I think they want to have Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley and sell an ounce of hope to this fan base that is just desperate for it right now. I don't think he's done. I'm not
saying I think he's done, but I'm saying it's within the realm of possibility.
A lot of things in life are. So I'm not. I view that as a virtually. I mean, it's like barely a non-zero chance. Barely, in my opinion.
See, I think there's a 15% chance.
And I'm putting a 1% chance.
So anyway, it's hard to say, but regardless. But the one thing I will say, just let's take the reverse of that. If I'm 3-0, and I've hit on a couple of guys like. I'm making it up here.
Keenan Allen's your third-round pick.
Yeah, I mean, like whatever. Just like you're getting running back production that you didn't expect. Like for example, like Devin Singletary, who like we think is going to be good. Like if you've got like some decent running back depth,
yeah,
and you're 3-0, like I would make a lowball offer for Saquon Barkley, especially if the person in your league is sitting there at 0-3 or 1-2 with Saquon, and probably going, oh man,
yeah,
what do I do? Right? So
I agree.
I would definitely do that.
So let's keep things moving here. Cam Newton has already been ruled out for week 4, and Joe Person of The Athletic reports he's got a Liz Frank issue, which always scares me. That's not good. He described it as being out indefinitely. Here's what we know. Kyle Allen is the next man up. He played last week, and he played really well. He, of course, makes the waiver wire column. So, again, Matthew, understanding that Kyle Allen is going to be starting indefinitely, there are 2 questions here. 2. 1, would you drop Cam Newton? And
yes.
2, okay, that's easy. Then 2, of the quarterbacks, just to reiterate from yesterday's conversation, for those who may have missed it, of the quarterbacks that are buzzing about right now as waiver wire pickups, right? Bzz, bzz. Daniel Jones, Kyle Allen, and also Jacoby Brissett we talked about yesterday. Yeah. Which of those?
Case Keenum.
So again, let's call it a 4-week window. Who do you want most?
Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones number one for the next 4 weeks. Okay,
yes.
And then
then Kyle Allen.
Too. Yeah, so we expect.
That's how I rank it.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that or no?
Yeah, I would.
Is that how you rank them?
I would. It's a blend of schedule.
Yep.
It's a blend of the fact that I said indefinitely, and I give you a 4-week window, but like maybe indefinitely means 3 weeks, right? And then Cam Newton's back. So 4 weeks of Daniel Jones, knowing what he's going to be.
Correct. Barring first, there's a little bit more rushing upside with Daniel Jones that isn't there with Kyle Allen, and there is like. Barring injury, Daniel Jones is playing every game for the rest of the year.
Correct.
At some point, Cam, there's a chance that Kyle Allen loses his job because Cam is ready. Now, I believe there is also the same thing that there's a chance, especially if Kyle Allen looked great, and if the Panthers go on a run here, that they're just sort of like, Cam, you should really take it a little, we think you need another week or 2. Like, I don't think they rush him back. You know what I'm saying?
That one I agree with.
Yeah.
Like that one I could totally see happening where like they say, hey, listen, like we got to be mindful of Cam's bigger picture and our bigger picture, and let's develop the heck out of this kid. And maybe, especially if he breathes life into their playoff hopes, and that division looks a lot different already than we expected it to going into week 4 of the season. Drew Brees is out for maybe 5 more weeks. The Falcons have sort of sputtered 1-2. The Bucks have done Bucks things. So yeah, I agree with you on that one.
Yeah. So they have something, I think they've found something here with Kyle Allen, and I like him this week at Houston. Like I think he's a viable like fill-in this week. I prefer Daniel Jones, both this week and longer term, especially at home against my Redskins. But out of Houston, a Texans team that Phillip Rivers just threw for 300 yards against, that hasn't been great in the secondary. Kyle Allen can play. Like we talked about this last week, and so I'm in on Kyle Allen as well. 2 first names. Always a crowd, please.
We're going to come back and talk about waiver wires in a second with a word from Daniel as well. But first, do we have the clip from the fantasy show? You want to read first, Daniel?
Yeah, I got to read first. Okay, Field.
Fine.
I mean, come on.
Either order worked.
Listen, guys, hiring can be a slow process. And it's obviously because I got a guy like Field who doesn't even know the order of the show. I've been trying to find someone to get in that seat. Cafe Altura COO Dylan Miskowitz needed to hire a director of coffee for his organic coffee company, but he was having trouble finding qualified candidates. So he switched to ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its technology identifies people with the right experience and invites them to apply to your job, so you get qualified candidates fast. Dylan posted his job on ZipRecruiter and said he was impressed by how quickly he had great candidates apply. He also used ZipRecruiter's candidates rating feature to filter his applicants so he could focus on the most relevant ones. See what I did there?
That was good.
And that's how Dylan found his new director of coffee in just a few days. With results like that, it's no wonder 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See why ZipRecruiter is effective for business of all sizes. Try ZipRecruiter for free at our web address, ZipRecruiter.com/0600. That's ZipRecruiter.com/06010. ZipRecruiter.com/0600. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And now, Field, if you are watching our live stream, you are going to see a quick video, and then we'll come back and have more waiver wire conversation after that.
Then I seen a guy hanging out the window, screaming that his kids was in there and things like that. So I ran to the back door, see if it was open, and it was. I ran upstairs, and then I was greeted with smoke. I ran back downstairs. By that time, the ladder truck was pulling up, and ironically, being one of my old coworkers, took the ladder off the truck, raised it up, and was assisting people down. My man just started throwing babies out the window. And we was catching them, unlike Agholor and his mishaps. I like to put that out there.
For those of you that may not know what that video refers to, or maybe missed it yesterday, obviously there was a very scary situation with a fire in Philadelphia, and that man there, in a heroic effort, helped literally catch babies coming out being tossed from windows because they had to. That was the only way to save these lives. And he made a joke, or he made a comment. It wasn't a joke. He said it very matter of fact. I did not drop these babies, unlike Nelson Agholor.
Right.
If you have missed Nelson Agholor's tweet, go find it. He quote tweeted the video that ESPN posted
of this guy,
invited this man. It's on the screen right now for those that are watching. Thank you for being a hero in the community. Would like to invite you and your family to the next home game. Twitter, help me out and get me in touch with him, referring to the man that called Nelson Agholor out for dropping passes. So I say this. Good on you, Nelson Agholor, for being an absolute team sport, showing what class and dignity is all about. A great kid. And also, the first player on our waiver wire this week. Matthew, I'm going to hand it over to you to host for a minute. But first, I will tell you about Nelson Agholor, who's available 63% of leagues. He's scored in each of the past 4 games in which he's caught 3+ passes. They played last week. They play on Thursday. Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson did not practice last week, which makes you believe there is a chance, if not a very good one, that both of them do not play again on Thursday night, which would lead towards Nelson Agholor being the guy in the Philadelphia passing game against the Packers in Green Bay on Thursday night.
They've had to throw a decent amount. It hasn't always been pretty, but, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside did not have a strong game last week, and so my expectation here is Agholor, who scored twice, should be a focal point along with Zach Ertz of the Eagles' passing game as their running game continues to sort of struggle, hasn't really gotten any consistency there. So I get it on Agholor, but speaking of that Thursday night game, Eagles-Packers, there's a guy facing Agholor that you're interested in as well.
Marquez Valdes-Scantling for the Packers wide receiver who made it by the narrowest of margins, 49.9% rostership on Sunday night. He may have actually crossed the threshold by Monday for those that have rolling waivers in their league. This season, Marquez Valdes-Scantling has 22 targets to Geronimo Allison's 7, whereas Geronimo Allison's air yards per target is just 3.3, MVS is 10.8. He's the better big play potential. He seems to have a connection and a rapport with Aaron Rodgers. Pretty simple right here. MVS, the preferred number 2 wideout in Green Bay.
Yeah, it seems very clear that through 3 games that he's the guy, not Geronimo Allison, that's the number 2 wide receiver in Green Bay. And for the last 5 years that Aaron Rodgers has been healthy, the number 2 wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers has averaged 14.3 fantasy points per game. Last year, that would have been wide receiver 23 on a points per game basis. So there is value if you can be the number 2 wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers. It's a slower offense than we're used to in Green Bay. It's a more run-heavy offense than we're used to in Green Bay. But still, again, as we've talked about before you guys fully panic on the Packers and this offense, realize they played the Bears, they played the Vikings, they played the Denver Broncos. It gets easier for them. MVS is a great choice there. Now, Fantasy Trends brought to you by TD Ameritrade Field. And so let's go to Jacksonville, where everyone in the preseason thought D.D. Westbrook was the Jags wide receiver you want. You've got a different name for us.
Well, he could very well still be the Jaguars wide receiver that scores the most fantasy points this season, but at some time, you have to just let the good times roll. And DJ Chark has scored a touchdown in each game so far this season. He's got a 50% red zone share, a 50% end zone target share this season. He's recording a catch on nearly 18% of his routes. He joined the other elite and Terry McLaurin as the two players with 55 receiving yards and a touchdown reception in all 3 games this year. Trust the hot hand, or at least play the hot hand with DJ Chark.
And by the way, this didn't come out of nowhere the way I think some people thought. Like, there were a lot of reports out of Jaguars camp, including Mike DeRocco, who covers the team and does a great job, talking about how DJ Chark had been the most impressive player in camp. So this is a name that had sort of been rising up draft boards, and we talked about him a little bit as a deep sleeper in the preseason here, and now that preseason buzz has translated into real-world production. He's a top 8 fantasy wide receiver through the first 3 weeks. And if last Thursday night is any indication, there's a real connection between DJ Chark and Gardner Minshew.
I have a serious question about that.
Sorry.
Matthew Berry.
Yes, sir.
Because you said that Terry McLaurin was a top 20 wide receiver.
He is.
And I'm curious, and I don't think you're the only one that feels this way. Like, DJ Chark has done more this year as wide receiver 8 than Terry McLaurin has. So why is there not more hype on DJ than there is on Terry McLaurin? It's not like either one of those offenses are particularly fascinating. You know what I mean?
I think there's a couple of reasons there. So for me, and by the way, I mean, I think DJ Chark is starting to get some hype, but if you ask me to compare the two, I think much more often than not, the Redskins will be a negative game script than the Jaguars will. The Jaguars still have a good defense. We'll see what happens with Jalen Ramsey, by the way. I almost, you know what, speaking about snarky tweets that you had lined up, and I almost did this when I was just like, hey, I think I'm going to be, I like how Jalen Ramsey's thinking. I think I'm going to call in sick for being a Redskins fan or something like that. But then I couldn't nail the exact jokes. I didn't tweet it. Now that I'm saying it out loud, I probably shouldn't have even done that. They're not all winners, kids. What are you going to do? They're not all winners.
You got to try. You got to throw some out there.
I should have workshopped that one a little bit. Anyway.
That was like a Case Keenum pass.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey-o!
Right? Oh, wow.
That's how comedy works.
It's funny because it's true. But here's the thing. So I think that the Redskins will be in much more negative game script than the Jaguars, who, regardless of what happens with Jalen Ramsey, is still going to have a good defense. They still want to be a run-heavy team. Like they're excited. They feel like they found something in Gardner Minshew, but they still want that offense to revolve around that running game. They still want to run first and then pass. And so with D.D. Westbrook, who we like, and by the way, and I don't know if James O'Shaughnessy, did he make your tight end waiver wire column? Because
he did not.
It's ugly out there.
It is.
I like him. I like him a little bit.
I like him
Again,
one catch a game too.
Yeah. All right. Anyway,
let's keep it moving.
So that's
here.
why it's just like Terry McLaurin is like the clear-cut number one guy on a team that's going to be throwing a ton, as opposed to DJ Chark, who maybe he's the one, maybe he's the two. There's more mouths to feed in a Jaguars offense that's going to be more run heavy than not. So that, for me, that's the reasoning.
All good points.
Phillip Dorsett for the Patriots, available in nearly 95% of leagues. He has caught 33 of his last 34 targets. He's reliable. The 34th target, by the way, was a play. We talked about this yesterday on the show. It went to review, as you astutely noted, Matthew. If it had been called a catch on the field and challenged, it would have stood as a catch. Because it was not called a catch on the field, it was one of those didn't have completely, indisputable replay evidence. The Patriots have played 3 or more wide receivers on 72.7% of their snaps this season. That's up from 57% of their snaps last season. Obviously less of a tight end influence this year. Talented player, 3 touchdowns in 3 games this year.
And to your point, as we talked about earlier with the injury to James Devlin and the running game struggling, maybe they do go more 3 wide receiver sets throughout, right? And so again, Phillip Dorsett, who's the 18th best wide receiver in fantasy so far this year, I think I might prefer him to DJ Chark here on your list. So I might go a little bit different. Quarterbacks next.
Hold on. Nope, not yet there yet.
We got another wide receiver.
Dollar Shave Club. When we talk about Dollar Shave Club, we can't stress enough the quality of their products. They spent years developing, crafting, and refining everything. They have everything you can use to look, feel, and smell your best. You name it, they have it. And as amazing as their shave stuff is, Dollar Shave Club is way more than just razors. Dollar Shave Club has you covered, head to toe. They have everything you need to shower, shave, style your hair, brush your teeth, and yes, even wipe your butt. And Dollar Shave Club can keep you automatically stocked up on the products you use. You get whatever you want, whenever you need it. Whether that's once a month or a few times a year, you never know. You never have to waste time at a store wondering if what you're getting is any good. As a Dollar Shave Club member, trust me, we know what you're getting is the highest quality. And right now, you can put the quality of Dollar Shave Club's products to the test. Their Ultimate Shave Starter Set has basically everything you need for the amazing shave you want. The Executive Razor, Shave Butter, Prep Scrub, and Post Shave Dew. The best part is you can try it for just $5. After that, the restock box ships regular size products at regular prices. Get your Ultimate Starter Set for just $5 at dollarshaveclub.com/FFF. That's dollarshaveclub.com/FFF. Time now for a crappy promo.
It's New York Times bestselling author Matthew Berry with another self-serving, self-indulgent, all-about-me promo.
I'm here to help. So I want to talk about a couple of things under the Fantasy Life banner. First off, the Fantasy Life app is 100% free. People continue to tweet me going like, thank you for pounding the pavement on this and banging the drum. I finally broke down. I finally downloaded the app. It's 100% free, and I don't know how I lived without it. It's unbelievably. So, unbelievable in terms of the alerts, the help that it gives you. It is super fast. And again, 100% free. The community is amazing as well. Jump in, get advice. Highly recommend it. Download it now. FantasyLifeApp.com. Again, 100% free. And if you hate it, just delete it. It's a free app. What do you care? Take 10 seconds and download it. Trust me, there's a reason we're at almost 4.9 stars with 1,000 reviews on iTunes. And then, by the way, FantasyLife.com. If you're like, hey, I'd like a T-shirt, I'd like some good karma, I'd like a hat, like to wear some swag. Go to FantasyLife.com. We've got hats, T-shirts, tumblers, you name it. Make you look good, give you good fantasy karma. Turn that season around. You can use the promo code MB10 for 10% off at FantasyLife.com.
Good stuff there. Now let's get to some social questions from our good friend Keith.
Hey, real quickly, before you get to the social questions, as Keith sort of goes through our...
We might have a social question that has to deal with the question you're going to ask here, Matthew
really?
Berry. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Let's find out if we are simpatico with each other.
Okay, sure.
Or at least it can push you in this direction.
Sure.
At least I know you want to talk about running backs. And it's a me, Mario, wants to know is...
Well done.
Wait, what was that?
Let's just pause the podcast for a second.
Mario.
That was pretty good, too.
That was better,
It's
actually.
that's like my Pedro Alvarez impression.
It is. You want to do it?
That was good.
It's
Back
like,
in the
hey,
day.
it's a me, a Pedro Alvarez. Hey,
All right.
what's happening?
I'm going to go with
Yeah.
Field, Matthew, me on that power rankings on that. He wants to know, is Darrel Williams the running back to have in Kansas City?
So we don't know the answer to that. So this
Right,
is
it's
one of the things
early
we
on
want
in
to
the
talk
week,
about.
right?
That.
Yeah.
Early in the week. I will say that, again, as we sort of talked about with Nelson Agholor versus Wayne Gallman in terms of it depends on what you need. If I don't need to start anyone this week, I would 100% make Darrel Williams
Your priority waiver
waiver claim, because there's a chance that Darrel Williams is the starting running backs of the Chiefs this week and or at some point in the future, because LaShawn McCoy and Damian Williams are both banged up at the moment, and they have been previously in their career. Like, even if they're, quote, fine for this weekend, like, there's no guarantee that they're healthy the rest of the season. And so Darwin Thompson, we'd sort of been told that this was going to be a Darwin Thompson coming out party this past week, and that didn't happen. They still want to get him involved. They still like him, but he's a smaller guy. He's not a workhorse back. Like, he's a 8 to 12 touch a game guy, try to get him in space, a big play sort of guy. Like a between the tackles guy is much more Darrel Williams, who, by the way, played well at LSU when he was in college. Like Darrel Williams is a real guy, and so again,
he's a solid player. Solid.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying
Listen,
he's anything
they
amazing.
wouldn't have signed LaShawn McCoy and extended Damian Williams if they felt like they had a no doubt about it superstar. He's a solid player.
But
you know what? He plays for the Chiefs. That's what matters.
That's my point. Like, look, I mean, think about why am I blanking on his name? But like Corell Buckhalter or is Bryce what was his name? A Eagles running back for a nanosecond. That Bryce, What was you might think?
Bryce Brown from Kansas
Bryce
State.
Brown, yeah, Bryce Brown, and like Charkandrick West. My point is like there have been a number of guys that are just a guy that have been fantasy relevant when they've been the starting running back for Andy Reid's offense. And
No question about that. They churn him out.
They churn him out. So Coral Buckhalter. I mean, like so.
Good pull there.
Yeah, thank you. And so Darrel Williams, to me, is somebody that should be rostered if you're looking for just a high upside flyer. He's a guy that could get 20 touches on Sunday, and he could get none. He could be inactive. We just don't know at the moment the status of McCoy and Williams, but I do think he's pretty interesting.
Couple more questions
As is
here. What else
Darwin
you got,
Thompson.
Keith?
Yeah, Mike wants to know, do you trust Devonta Freeman as your running back 2 moving forward?
Trust is a strong word.
Yeah, Matthew says that always, and I think it's a fair interpretation in this case. The Falcons
looked
are
better on Sunday.
He
I will
did,
say
and the
that.
Falcons are saying the right things right now about wanting to get him the football more. That being said, even when he has gotten the football this year, it has not been especially effective. The passing game usage hasn't been elite, which in previous seasons there was the upside for it to be elite. I trust him because there are so few running back options, and there's not many guys that I can say are RB2s. But if I had to put him closer to the bottom of the RB2s versus the top, it's not even close. He's much closer to an RB3 than he is an RB1.
I will also say that when you think about, if you go back to the draft and you think about sort of the guys that he was drafted around, right? I much prefer, like, he was drafted in the sort of the same area code as Derrick Henry, as Marlon Mack, as Aaron Jones, as Kerryon Johnson. I think he's probably, even though Kerryon Johnson has struggled somewhat and Aaron Jones looks like he's in more of a committee than we thought, I still think I would rank him 5th among all those guys I just mentioned. You know what I mean? Like, so I agree with Field in that he is a RB2, but would I feel like super confident, like I got this spot set? I would not.
Keith, what else you got?
Yeah, Chris wants to know, should we be panicking about Aaron Rodgers?
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
Here's what I would say that is because he was drafted in a lot of cases as the second quarterback, which may have been somewhere between like the 6th and 7th round. Possible.
That's known as a mistake in the drafting community.
Right, I agree, Daniel. You're right. But people may have drafted him that high because they felt
They did.
Right. They could have gotten, a quarterback with 40 touchdown potential. The schedule has been brutal. We talked about this yesterday. Like, it lets up a little bit.
Earlier in this show.
Well, it's been brutal. That's right. We talked about it earlier on the show. It has been brutal. It lets up a little bit later on in the season, but they play in the division with 2 excellent defenses and potentially a 3rd really good one, too. The Lions might be a legit defense. We'll get a better taste of them this Sunday against.
Whoa, we were not one of the 2 really legit defenses when you made that statement?
The 3.
That's correct. But here's what I think will be a great litmus test. So to answer your Aaron Rodgers question, I think it is unlikely, to Field's point about where you drafted him, I think it is unlikely that you get your draft day value out of Aaron Rodgers. I don't think he finishes the year as the number 2 quarterback in fantasy.
I agree on that.
Right? And I think that if we redrafted today, he goes maybe in the top 10, but I mean, there's a lot of guys you're drafting ahead of Aaron Rodgers.
Sure.
That said, it has been a brutal start to the season. It is a new offense that they're sort of learning their rhythm. And I think a great test will be this Thursday night. They're at home on a short week against one of the most struggling secondaries in the NFL. The Eagles secondary has just been burned for 3 straight weeks. It is a tough. It's been a tough road so far for the Eagles secondary. If Aaron Rodgers can't do it, he'll make the love list when the love list comes out. The love-hate list comes out this week. If Aaron Rodgers can't do it this week at home against an Eagles team that is traveling on a short week with a bad secondary, if he can't do it this week, Field, that's when I think you can then you can start panicking. That's when you hit the panic button on Aaron Rodgers. But until that time, like, I'm starting him this week, and I still believe in the talent of the player and the talent of the players surrounding him, that at the end of the day, he's going to wind up with good fantasy numbers because he's Aaron Rodgers.
Couple more here, Keith. What else you got?
Yeah, Scott's thinking a week ahead here with Tevin Coleman potentially coming back.
Question for you, Keith. Where are these coming from? Just so people know that they can. Are these all coming from Twitter? Are these all coming from? Because you can watch us live on YouTube. You can
They're
watch
coming
us
from all over.
Yeah, we get them everywhere. We get them from
Twitter.
We just gather them together.
Okay, so people can, just so you know, you can watch us live on the ESPN YouTube channel. You can watch us live on the ESPN app. You can watch us live on Twitter at Fantasy Focus.
And live on the ESPN Fantasy Facebook page.
And so it's the ESPN Fantasy Facebook page, not like an ESPN page or anything.
Yep.
So there you go, 10 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. All right.
Yeah, so Scott was going to ask about Tevin Coleman. With him potentially coming back, is the San Francisco backfield a no-fly zone until further notice?
Well, he's going to probably be coming back in week 5, and they have a bye in week 4. So, yes, it is a no-fly zone until that point. During the preseason, I talked about how I wasn't comfortable drafting any of the 49ers running backs, and I got pushback, and it was like, yeah, I actually think there's a chance for them to all be, for this backfield to be dominant. And this is part of the reason why, is that Kyle Shanahan is fickle with his running backs.
Yeah.
And I ended up with Tevin Coleman in a couple of leagues, and I'm already regretting it.
Here's I'm actually more bullish than you are. I think Tevin Coleman's a talented player. I think and listen, there's certainly risk involved, and I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, Kyle Shanahan was quoted, I think, at his press conference yesterday, saying he's looking forward to the challenge of figuring out what to do when Tevin Coleman comes back, because they've gotten great production so far from Matt Breida, Raheem Mostert, and Jeff Wilson Jr. So trying to figure that out. But they will figure that out. Tevin Coleman, look, the 49ers, they're going to be a better team than anyone realized. You know, they're 3-0. Like, and that's a team that is playing well, is going to run the ball effectively. And so Tevin Coleman, who's out there in about 35% of ESPN leagues, he's not enough to make your column, but not 100% rostered. Yeah, I do think there's some upside there, because I think ultimately, and maybe you're not starting him in week 5, you want to sort of see how it plays out. So I get the question, but I do think that it will settle into something that it might be like Coleman and Breida, and who knows, maybe Wilson, vultures some more touchdowns here. But I do think, given the ugly state of the running back position, that Coleman could be a viable flex play, especially as we start getting further into the bye.
What else you got, Keith?
Lots of running back talk today. Will wants to know, for the rest of the season, Fournette or Connor?
You want to take this one?
Is that how you pass when you don't want to answer something?
No, I'll take James Conner.
I don't know.
I'll go James Conner. I was just going to say, because I'd already earlier said that I'm not a Fournette guy, but go ahead, make your case for Fournette.
Let's do this. Let's not make a case. Let's just do this way. I take Leonard Fournette. You take James Conner. Season-long board bet starting week 4.
I'll take from week 4 on most fantasy points per game or total fantasy points.
Let's do fantasy points per game in the event of an injury. But can we say it's like minimum?
Asking.
Let's do this. Fantasy points per game.
Yeah.
Minimum 6 games played. Because if it's they have one, know what I mean?
That's fair.
Okay.
That's a fair thing.
That's fair.
Yep.
Minimum 6 games played, fantasy points per game. Established.
Right. From week 4 on, I take James Conner.
From week 4 on, I take Leonard Fournette. Put it on the board.
Put it on the board.
All right, last one here, Keith, before we got to go and get ready for the next show.
Good work on that board bet, boys.
Thank you.
Josh wants to know, are you buying low on Chris Carson?
I kind of am.
I am too, and here's the reason why. Pete Carroll, we talked yesterday about how some coaches, when a player fumbles, it's doghouse and it's see you later. Pete Carroll, and this is somewhat anecdotal evidence, but Pete Carroll is the most positive coach you'll ever meet. He is the guy that is always optimistic on injury timeline. He's the guy who talks about love and teammates and building this thing together. I don't get the sense that Pete Carroll's methodology to fix Chris Carson's current case of fumbleitis is putting him in the doghouse and letting Rashad Penny take all of the work. I think instead he's going to say, Chris, we need you. This is when the kicker misses a chip shot field goal in the third quarter or in the fourth quarter. He comes up the sideline and the coach gives him a big hug and says, we're going to need you in the fourth quarter. And then you end up winning the game. Like Pat Narduzzi for Pitt this past Saturday in that big game over UCF. That's what I think is going to happen with Chris Carson.
Yeah,
Pete Carroll's going to build him back up.
The other thing is, prior to this year, and I mean, it's been brutal. I think he's lost 3 fumbles. But prior to this year, Chris Carson had never fumbled in college, and he'd lost only 2 fumbles in his NFL career prior to this season. So it's not like this is a thing that has always plagued his career. And I agree with Field. Like, for the Seahawks to get where they want to go this year, they need Chris Carson. Like, even if it's a running back by committee, wanting both guys, like they're not going anywhere with CJ Procise. I'm sorry, right? It's going to be Carson and Penny. I will say that if I had Chris Carson on my team and didn't have Rashad Penny, number one is I would check to see if he's available, because he's out there in about 35% of ESPN leagues. So number one, just see if he's been dropped. Number 2 is, especially if Penny is still hurt, we don't know what his status is. He obviously missed last week's game with an injury, but if he's hurt for this one as well, make an offer for Rashad Penny. Like, if I had Chris Carson, I would just try to, if there was a way, I'm not going to overpay for him, but I would try to get Rashad Penny if I could. But I do. I am more bullish on. I am buying Chris Carson as opposed to selling him, given certainly his stock has taken a hit.
Good stuff there. Okay, we are back on Wednesday with rankings and Mike Clay and Star Fania Bell and so much more. In the meantime, watch the Fantasy Show on ESPN+. Plus, Daniel, what else you got?
Field Yates, I just want you to know that Stephon Diggs, I release you and claim you as underrated for the 2019 fantasy season for Field Yates.
There you have it. Thank you very much, Daniel. Stephon Diggs going to go ham for 3 touchdowns on Sunday. You heard it here first. Talk to you guys tomorrow.
Peace out.
He's Matthew Berry. He's Matthew Berry. He's Matthew Berry. You're in the 06010. Never gonna hustle in case you didn't know. Matthew Berry, TMR.
You guys go ahead. Give me grief for being on SportsCenter for 45 seconds.
I think you could do better than me because I don't think you could.
Jailbait, Field Yates.
You're terrible at hashtag improv. At Field Yates. At Field Yates.
Stephania Bell.
Oh, don't let Barry convert you.
Secret Squirrel, Daniel Dodd.
Make it happen.
Media